Just before we get started today, one quick thing. When you're looking at the ad platforms like Meta, Google, TikTok, you're probably making decisions on data that's missing 20 to 30% of your actual conversions. That's what's happening for most brands right now due to iOS privacy changes. And the problem really isn't that your ads aren't working. The problem is that the ad platforms literally can't see a huge chunk of what's actually converting. So, you're either underspending on campaigns that are profitable or the worst part is overspending on ones that aren't. And today's episode is actually sponsored by our friends over at Little Data, and they're the ones that are solving this problem today. And they fix it by becoming your data infrastructure between Shopify and everything else. So think about your ad platforms, think about Google Analytics, all of it. And they make sure that the conversion data actually gets to where it needs to go accurately so that you can make decisions with confidence instead of guessing. And now what I appreciate about them is that it's not another platform to learn, another dashboard to check. They actually make the tools that you already are using to make sure they work properly so that you're spending money on ads that you know are actually working. And more than 2,000 Shopify brands are currently using Little Data right now as their foundation. So if you're at the stage where maybe incomplete data is costing you real money in ads, like you 100% need to go check out littledata.io and they can get you taken care of. All right, let's jump into today's episode.
You're listening to E-commerce Fastlane, the podcast show to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company, powered by Shopify. Listen to real conversations with partners and subject matter experts as they share proven practical strategies, platforms, and the best Shopify apps to help you accelerate your business. The time is now for you to improve efficiencies, grow revenue, profit, and lifetime customer loyalty. Please welcome your host, startup founder, and strategic advisor, Steve Hutt.
So hi there, welcome back to E-commerce Fastlane. I am your host, Steve Hutt. Now, Reddy is on the show again. He's been a regular. He was back on the show back in June to talk about kind of Shopify Summer Editions 2025 that came out. There was a complete revamp, I think, of the Shopify POS system. They call it POS 10. It was a full overhaul on that. And now he's here again today, right on schedule, I might add, 6 months later. But Shopify just released their Winter Editions 2026. So this is kind of like a twice yearly kind of a thing with a summer and a winter editions. There'll be links in the show notes for winter editions. It's really amazing. And it's nice to be able to catch up with Ray right now every 6 months to talk about what he and his team are building for retail. It's quite interesting. Ray is the VP of retail for Shopify, and he's been part of helping brands run their brick-and-mortar stores or their pop-up stores. And today, you're going to learn a lot about this new thing. Well, number one, software update that happens with POS, but more importantly, some of the things that have happened with a new device called the POS Hub. And I think it's going to tackle, we kind of chatted offline before recording, but there's a lot of like unglamorous, critical, flaky problems that can happen with Bluetooth hardware. And ironically, it always dies in the worst times when you're busy. And so I think that's what some of the things and challenges that Ray has been working on. And that's what the broader updates overall with POS and his hardware devices can be really exciting to unpack today. So, hi, Ray, welcome back to the show.
Hey, Steve, thanks for having me on again.
My pleasure. So Winter Editions is exciting. It's out into the wild now. Like I said, link in the show notes. So can you talk a little about maybe the highlight reel a bit about like what sort of like a POS updates have happened, like at least from a software perspective that you want to highlight today?
One of the things that Shopify loves to do is kind of just pick a theme for each one of these releases that I think just resonates with the moment in time that we're in right now in the world and what we think is top of mind for merchants. And this Winter Edition's theme is Renaissance, with a play on AI being at the center, the word and our world. And I think there's this transformative moment right now where we really feel like it's Shopify's responsibility to help businesses find their place in this new AI landscape and figure out how to just take this from, a buzzword to something that translates into like better results and ultimately something that helps them run their businesses a bit better. So I think that's been the overarching theme. And, maybe two-part update on what we've been up to in the world of retail and POS. One is you mentioned what's happening on the software side. It's a whole lot. I think for us, one of the big things is online store runs in 175 countries. Many of the brands we have operate across these countries, and many of these online brands are now starting to open more and more retail stores. And so expanding our global footprint, I think, has been a very big theme for us. We now have expanded in-person payments to Luxembourg, Switzerland, the Czech Republic. We're starting to go deep into EU and APAC, many more countries to come. We've expanded tap-to-pay support on iPhone, and we've added Germany, Ireland, New Zealand, Spain. We're also doing a lot with like local payment methods. And so we're now supporting carte bancaire. And then, back to just helping merchants run their businesses better and just make it easier to be smarter. We're investing a lot in retail markets. So it's just helping merchants manage their catalogs across various countries. And actually, markets are very powerful. It doesn't have to represent a geography. It's just a way of representing a collection of your stores. You can think of that as my outlet stores versus my retail stores, or divided by country. However you want to do it, it just makes pricing, managing inventory, all of that stuff much, much, much easier. It's a super powerful tool. It's something we continue to invest in. And then the last one is we're probably doing much more in inventory. There's still a ways to go, but we just launched the ability to do stock counts right on POS natively. So that's something we're excited about. The team has actually quite a long list of launches that we'll go through in detail, but maybe the last one worth mentioning is subscription. This was something that many merchants have products that they sell subscriptions to online. This was always a big gap that they couldn't enroll someone in a subscription in store. And so we're really excited to have that kind of parity now where you can have someone come into your store and enroll them into an ongoing subscription just seamlessly as part of the same transaction.
Lovely. So now we can get into the hardware. I think I always get excited about like hardware parts fix. I think that's one of the problems that I see. This is what caught my eye in the additions, like, at least from a retail side of it, is that I think many merchants do struggle a bit about like kind of Bluetooth scanners and printers, unfortunately failing at the worst possible time. So can you talk a little bit about this, and then kind of what the POS Hub is physically, and then like why did you decide maybe to tackle hardware reliability things?
Wireless technology is probably the most mysterious, confusing topic in the hardware industry. You can't touch it. You can't see it. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. When it works, it's magical. And when it doesn't, you just want to throw it out the window. And just to ground us in where we are today, wireless peripherals have been almost like the default way that most merchants attach Bluetooth scanners and the barcode scanners to their POS systems. And it has represented the majority of our support tickets over many years, in fact. And I think so much of it is, this familiar story of like, your iPad ready to go, you think your barcode scanner is ready to go, you're about to check someone out, and all of a sudden you realize the barcode scanner has lost its connection, or the receipt printer has lost its connection. And it really affects merchants at peak selling times, busy holiday weekends. It almost feels like when it's most important that things work, they seem to let you down. And so, just to frame the problem, that's the problem that we're looking to solve. And it's been a difficult one because, just maybe a little bit of background here on how we sort of got here. In the Windows world, which is where most peripherals were built for, most manufacturers would write what we would call a driver. It's basically software that teaches the computer how to talk to the device. The problem was it was a bit of the Wild West. Anyone could do anything, and it was a way to sort of like inject code into Windows, and many viruses and hijacks came as a result of it. So Apple looked at all that chaos and said, we're not going to do that. And so on iOS and on iPad, Apple is the only one that can write these drivers. And there were three reasons for that. One was, this wasn't random. It was security. So they wanted this to not be subject to all the vulnerabilities of Windows. The second was stability. And the last is battery life. They wanted to make sure that the iPad was like super efficient and, would sip power, not gulp it. That all was great for consumers, but what it meant was, you buy this multi-$1,000 iPad to run your business POS on it, and then you have these types of challenges with many of these peripherals actually only work via USB. A good example would be a specialized weighing scale at certain grocery stores. Some of the high-end ones are only wired. And then when you use wireless, it's a lot of the things we talked about. Beyond the reliability issues, Apple tried to offer something called MFI, made for iPhone. And it's a special certification process, But again, the challenge there is that it tends to double the price of things because certification is expensive. It takes years to develop. And so many peripherals never got MFI certified. Most peripherals that most retailers that are using, I would say, like a legacy POS, and they've invested tens of thousands, maybe millions of dollars on some of these peripheral hardware, they can't use it. And this has been one of actually the biggest adoption challenges for larger brands and enterprises to move over to modern POS systems. That's kind of framing the problem.
I'm totally with you on that because it just happened even recently where I actually went into a retailer. I could see the hardware was Shopify and I kind of understand. I used to work for Shopify, so I kind of understand what's going on here. But she says, yeah, it's just not working right now. And then having these sorts of connection problems, and she, trying to reboot her computer and trying to reboot her iPad and trying to figure things all out. And she was having challenges. And I think like here it is, that's just me walking into a random store in my city and seeing that happening. Clearly, this was a massive problem that's happening for lots of people.
As I said, it represented something like 40% of our overall support tickets were related to hardware disconnection. So this was just one of those things where it's a tough problem and we just knew we had to solve it. Like it just was unacceptable that merchants were dealing with this level of frustration around hardware and peripherals. And so the solution is this product we've been working on for quite a while now that we're really excited to launch at Editions. It's called POS Hub. And to explain it very simply, it presents itself to the iPad as a single, simple device using a standard protocol that Apple already supports. And it is MFI certified. We've done that certification once. But on the other side, it's running a full Linux stack that can talk to anything. It's basically a universal translator. Your iPad speaks its simple, secure language. Your peripherals speak their complex proprietary language. And the hub just translates it all in real time. So what that means is you just plug in your receipt printer into the hub, your barcode scanner, and your crash drawer, and that's it. They all just instantly work. It's magical to see the setup process. And where it gets really interesting is because it's like a mini computer, it does a better job of managing those connections, being able to detect when something drops and reconnect it. The even cooler part about this is, for a retailer saying, well, okay, that's great, but I have wireless. I care about the aesthetic. I don't necessarily want all these wires on my countertop. It actually even solves that problem in an interesting way. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Logitech keyboards and mice, but they have something called Bolt. And what that is a little USB dongle that you just plug into your computer or USB hub. Essentially what it is it's still Bluetooth. All of the challenges in Bluetooth don't come from Bluetooth being the problem. It comes from a device needing to search for multiple hosts and the iPad going to sleep and dropping the connection. That is often how this happens. The nice thing about what is called point-to-point Bluetooth, where you have the peripheral and like a dongle on the other end that you can plug into a USB port, is it's a direct connection. Never drops. So what's interesting about the hub is many wireless devices support this type of thing. Many Bluetooth scanners come with a dongle, just like Logitech devices do. So by just plugging the other end of the receiver into the hub, you now have wireless peripherals too that are significantly more reliable and don't have the drop connection problem. So that's what's really cool about the hub is that it kind of gives you wired reliability, but also wireless reliability in the same way. So we just think it's really, really cool. It's trying to create this just like it just works moment. And it's one of the most boring, reliable piece of tech that you'll never think about. And that's exactly the point of how we want hardware to be.
It's interesting. It seems like there's quite a bit of intelligence behind it because I think it's interesting that there are these physical connections. I think that's great. But I also like the idea of it maybe surfacing kind of like alerts and stuff, like maybe like firmware updates or receipt printer stops working. Like, does it alert the staff that it's out of paper or, connection error, things like that? It sounds like a lot of this stuff is kind of like physically being handled already by the hardware.
Totally. So this is exactly the way we see the future of this going, which is today it solves the connectivity and reliability problem, but it is basically a computer that can update itself, get over the air, upgrades over the internet, constantly updating the firmware and the operating system. So we're really excited about essentially the thing that can manage all your hardware and peripherals so you don't have to. We just think this is going to be such a powerful part of the ecosystem. And what it means for merchants is, for so many, is if you've invested in these wired peripherals, you can bring them over and don't have to rebuy hardware. We think that's really important.
I love that because I think having hardware flexibility is, I think, great. You can get the hub, and we'll talk about how to get one and the pricing and stuff like that in a bit. But it's interesting because I think a lot of people want to bring over their own off-the-shelf kind of scanners and printers that they already currently have, and they're not necessarily locked into what Shopify offers. But I know Shopify is a full system of ready to go that you can buy as a package, but some people have systems or hardware they're already happy with. And so you're suggesting they can just bang the flexibility of hardware, just boom, and just works.
That's our goal. Yeah.
That's lovely. So let's talk about the different types of merchants, because there's going to be a lot of people listening today that are in different kind of like entrepreneurial states in their business currently. There's some early stage small merchants that are listening. Maybe they do weekend pop-ups, let's say, or farmers markets or whatever. And I think they're, maybe 5 or 10 grand a month. They're kind of doing their thing. And it's a great side hustle, but they've been currently maybe using the POS app and potentially the card reader. Does it make sense for someone in their early days that's just a weekend kind of hustle to get the POS Hub, or do you believe it's made for more mid-sized or a little bit bigger operations?
I think it was primarily designed for a brick-and-mortar store, but I think that actually there's some interesting use cases even for casual sellers. If you occasionally sell and you do tap to pay on your phone, you don't need that. It's all happening on one device, and it's great. The whole point is you've gotten reliability by minimizing your hardware footprint, which is wonderful. Where the hub really comes into play is if you start to connect multiple peripherals. So think about the typical brick and mortar store. You probably have a barcode scanner, you have a payment terminal, you have maybe a receipt printer. So now you're starting to get into, there's a setup here. So that's where we think the more peripherals you have, it's almost like the more failure points you have. All it takes is one of your 3 devices to go down and you have a problem completing a sale. So that's, I'd say, who we built it for. I'll give you a really great example of how we're using it. Often Shopify, we have our POS set up at certain retail conferences. You can almost think of it as like the equivalent of a pop-up. We're doing a pop-up for a few days. And this was a notorious problem that even we would deal with, which was when we were trying to do demos at pop-ups, the amount of Bluetooth noise, because you have so many other vendors there, it would sometimes make our peripherals, and you can imagine how brutal that is if you're at a retail show and that happens. And so the thing that we're able to prove this to ourselves in the first use case was like, let's put the hub in. And it's magic. You just get rid of all of that and you have perfectly reliable connections in a busy conference. I don't know how many farmers markets would have something like that, but I can just think of like a very busy space where you've got a lot of vendors and a lot of different wireless devices creating a lot of noise. And this is a great way if you're trying, you got a critical weekend at a pop-up and you plan on cranking through a lot of volume. I think the hub would be very beneficial.
And what about people that are running like multi-location? Because I think there's lots of people listening more in the mid-market to enterprise people. They got 20 or 50 locations or more probably. And if they get this hub, like what happens when they connect it? Because this is at scale at 50 or more locations. Do they configure it more centrally, or do each one of them do it individually on their own per location? Or is there more of a global connection? Because that's kind of how POS kind of works. There's still a roll-up to understand revenue for the whole org, not just, and then by individual store, you can actually kind of see the results of individual stores. I'm just curious in kind of how the hub would work in this sort of environment.
Today, because all these peripherals are connected via Bluetooth, if you're a mid-market brand with 20 stores and you had a question of like, okay, maybe I have 40 registers across 20 stores, what is the state of my hardware across them? Unless you're using an MDM, it's actually very, very difficult to get this kind of data today. And this is also what we plan on fixing with the hub. Right now, there's not central management of the hub in the sense that you don't really need like the hub is a connector. So rather than plugging or connecting your devices directly to the tablet, you just plug them into the hub and they seamlessly connect to the tablet, and it's meant to really solve a reliability problem. In general, you should not really have any disconnected devices going forward. So I think that's the problem number one to solve. But as I mentioned, because there's a computer running inside it, one of the goals we have here is to give that kind of visibility to brands. Brands should know at any point in time, if I have 20 stores and I have 40 registers, they should know what is the hardware state in every store, in every register. And this is actually the kind of reporting and visibility and dashboards that the hub will be able to provide. There are still reports that we need to be able to publish and distribute to brands. But what you're describing is the state of the world of hardware that we want to deliver for merchants.
I see. Now, what about like the aesthetics of it? No, with this hub now, because I'm thinking, I think some merchants, they have pretty strong opinions about what their counter actually physically looks like. So, like, how much flexibility do merchants actually have with this hub and what their counter looks like? Obviously, we talked about maybe existing peripherals is a no-brainer, and the answer is yes to that, and or Shopify's hardware. But what about existing stands and different things they may already have?
The first is the flexibility of Hub. So it is a beautiful device. It is made of polished aluminum. It can definitely sit on top of a counter. It's not much bigger than a large phone. So it actually just looks like a very small USB hub, even though it is a mini computer. But it's designed to be mounted under the counter. We've thought through many different configurations of how merchants might want to use it, near the stand, under the counter, in a different spot. So it's super flexible to match any aesthetic. And then in terms of what it means for, upgrading hardware, one thing that was important to us was making sure it worked with all generations of iPad because, yes, new iPads are USB-C, but there's still a lot of Lightning iPads out there. So one of the most important things was the hub is actually compatible with both new iPads and Lightning iPads from before. So that tends to be the big hardware investment we wanted to make sure merchants could retain. When it comes to the stand, the hub does require a change in stand because the old stands have integrated power and the hub essentially needs to plug right into the iPad. So that's why we have a selection of stands now. In fact, for the last few months, we have stands in the hardware store that any stand that probably was purchased in the last 6-9 months is compatible with Hub, but the old sort of POS from last year, the old POS 10 won't be. And then in terms of peripherals, most printers, any of the receipt printers we sell tend to connect either over Wi-Fi or via USB. All of those continue to work well. The only thing that we recommend against is you can continue using standard Bluetooth barcode scanners, but this is exactly the problem that we're trying to solve. So they will still work, but we recommend merchants move to either a wired Bluetooth scanner or a wireless scanner that supports the point-to-point dongle that we discussed earlier. And that's just for merchants who really want that reliability.
Very cool. And so let's talk about pricing, just so people are clear. We don't see it listed here in editions, but what's the investment of a device like this?
The hub is going on pre-sale at editions. It is going on sale for $69, which is, we think, incredible value for what is a mini computer. We have a few hundred merchants that are using it already today that have been testing and giving us early feedback. Feedback's been amazing. And any merchant that's had one or two quickly, if they operate multiple stores, it's like, how quickly can they get one in every store they have? So we anticipate demand for this will be high. We're really excited to get it out there.
What's interesting is that I know we talked offline and I'm excited to share this out now, but the last mile delivery and fulfillment, the speed of delivery, I'd even argue things like, Amazon Prime has kind of set the stage a bit about how quickly things can be delivered. And I think Shopify is finally coming to the plate now and showing that they have the technology and the ability now to be able to get a product from store to the customer's location. And I'm going to give you the opportunity now to share this new partnership.
Thanks, Steve. We're really excited about this partnership with Uber. I think we've all observed that many of the delivery apps have slowly been sort of inching into more and more retail and products being delivered. And it was sort of a no-brainer to say, wait a second, why don't we give our merchants this capability to do 1-hour delivery to people's homes? And so I'm really excited to share that Shopify now offers fast, reliable local delivery from retail stores with Uber Direct that leverages Uber's entire delivery network. What this means is that merchants can just easily connect Uber Direct to their Shopify online store and POS so that when customers make a purchase, they'll have the option to choose 1 hour, same day, or scheduled delivery right at checkout when placing an online order.
That's insane. I'll be honest with you, because I just think from a retail perspective, it's just now all of a sudden, there's intelligence in there to know that, well, the customer lives, let's say in my city, I'm in Langley, British Columbia. And it's just like, well, and there's a retail location in my city and there's visibility of the online store to know that it's in stock. And me as the customer can select that option upon checkout and know it can be picked up by Uber Direct and delivered over to me within the hour. Like that is just pretty wild.
Yeah. And, I think the important thing to say here is many retailers have done a version of this integration. And so offering the capability is one thing, but what we found is that it can create a bit of a mess with their in-store operations. And, it's always important to Shopify as part of doing these kinds of partnerships is that we're really making sure that in-store operations are seamless. And so these orders are injected right into the POS. So it just makes it really intuitive and simple for staff to be able to accept these orders in POS and be able to fulfill them. So I think that's the really important part here is that this integration is done in a way that makes it really easy for in-store staff.
What's interesting too is I remember in the past, like COVID times and stuff, where I think there was kind of buy online, pick up in store, and I think there was a lot of like different tools like Zapiet or C+ or something that, there was like a retail kind of connection to Uber Direct, but it was kind of like, unfortunately, a middleware to pick up in store or ship to customer and all these flows and stuff. And it was just pretty kind of a crazy kind of a duct tape kind of system that worked, but it was crazy and duct taped. And now it's nice that you've kind of solved this directly now with Uber Direct and direct with Shopify and your integration. So that's kudos to the team.
And the timing couldn't be better because one interesting thing we always observe at Shopify is for online, BF's Black Friday, Cyber Monday tends to be biggest week of the year. But with retail, it's always the last week before Christmas. It's always that December 20th tends to be the biggest weekend. So I think this is a wonderful opportunity for merchants. You can set this up in minutes and just manage it from the Shopify admin. And imagine giving your customers the ability to get all of their holiday shopping delivered in 1 hour so they don't have to fight the crowded malls. I think it's a great timing for this.
Yeah, it's really cool. I just actually wrote something about this exact thing, kind of like, I think BFCM to me was more of a warm-up. And, Shopify and the merchants did like incredible numbers. And I think we're up almost 30% over the previous year. And it was pretty amazing. I think he did like, over $14 billion, I think, over that period, up 27%, if my memory serves me correct. But it's interesting now that when they talk about the warm-up, that just kind of adding to what you're saying here, it's like they say more than 50% of the holiday spend is still available. Like it's not all of a sudden with the 4-day weekend, you think that all people have spent, if they have $800 to spend, well, they spent 400 of it. They still have 400 more to spend if their budget's 800 for the holidays. And so knowing that, that's the feedback I've been giving to merchants and through this article I wrote recently saying, hey, this is just the warm-up. Now the other half starts now. What are you doing about it from this point onward until the end of the year? And then gift cards kick in and there's lots of other fun things that can happen in January.
Totally.
Well, this is great, Ray. Any kind of parting notes, kind of next steps for people that are interested?
Look at it at the edition's launch. Look out for the POS Hub landing page and get your pre-order in and check out the Uber integration inside the Shopify admin.
Yeah, this is amazing. All right, I'll have all of these links in the show notes. And once again, Ray, thank you for coming on the show. I'll probably see you in June again for summer editions.
I'm sure I will.
All right, then. Have yourself a great afternoon.
Okay, you too, Steve.
All right, take care. Well, that's it for today's episode. I'd like to thank you personally for being a loyal listener of E-commerce Fastlane. It's my hope that this podcast is offering you a ton of value through growth strategies, tactics, and exclusive insider tips on the best Shopify apps and marketing platforms, all with my personal goal to help you build, manage, grow, and scale a successful and thriving company powered by Shopify. Thanks for investing some time today and listening to the show. I'm so proud and excited that you have a growth mindset and are a constant learner. I truly appreciate you and your entrepreneurial journey. Enjoy the rest of the week and keep thriving with Shopify.